And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with friends from the Hartville Migrant Ministry. We've got Nicole Bowman, who is the volunteer coordinator, and Laura Weiss, president of the ministry and of the board of trustees for the Hartville Migrant Ministry. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
First of all, Nicole, let's start with you. We want to talk a little bit about your work there, and exactly what does the volunteer coordinator work with and do?
Well, I have the pleasure and opportunity to work with all of the volunteers that come through our center throughout the season. And believe it or not, we have over 100 volunteers that come through our clinic, and as well as several groups that come in, student groups and high school groups and college groups. So I do a lot of the scheduling, placing of volunteers. If somebody comes to me and would like to volunteer, I find out what their talents are, their desires are, and place them appropriately, which is sometimes a challenge. But I found out that this year, amazingly enough, when we were short in an area, we needed a certain talent, somebody would call and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer, and, you know, we would find a place for that person, and that spot would be filled. Yeah, it's been amazing, and I've really enjoyed working with the volunteers. We've had some amazing dedicated volunteers.
Well, we'll get into more of the opportunities available, but let's find out more about the center itself. Laura, you are a nursing professor we should say you are Dr. Laura Weiss, nursing professor at Malone University. And how did you get involved in the first place with the Hartville Migrant Ministry?
Years ago, I needed a clinical site for community, and I started taking the nursing students there, and you know how those things sort of take over your life. So I had nursing students there, and then they said, would you like to come to a meeting? Would you like to be on the board? And then eventually, 15 years later, would you like to be the president? So it's been many years I've been there.
But you must enjoy it. You've really gotten plugged in.
It's wonderful, and it's probably, the reason I exist is that I feel like the ministry does so many wonderful things for so many wonderful people that it's a pleasure to be a part of them.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what exactly the ministry is. Tell us a little about the history. How did this all come about?
In 1952, a group of women got together and said that there are migrants in our area and we would like to do something to help them. At that time, there were mostly African Americans that were coming from the South that were coming up to pick vegetables and things like that. In 1962, they incorporated, and we are proud to say that our center is the oldest free clinic in the state of Ohio. But we're much more than a free clinic. So we try to help our migrants who at this point are mostly Hispanics. There are a few African Americans, Jamaicans, different cultures, but mostly it's all Hispanic.
Coming from where, Laura?
We have some that come from Texas, we have Georgia, we have Florida, and then we do have some that come on work visas from Mexico itself.
Now, I'm trying to grasp what reality is like for these people. No, they're tight families. They come as families, correct?
Yes.
And they are spending mostly what's warm for us, summery months, spring and summer here. Now they're about to move on, and then they will go where and do what?
So the growing season, as we call it, is they start coming in mid-April. Everybody who's coming is here by Memorial Day, so they're here. And then depends on the crew and what you do. You start pulling out at Labor Day all the way till about the end of October. And we've been very blessed this year. It looks like we're going to have a pretty late frost. And so the crops are still coming in and the weather is good. And we still have a large percentage of people still here. We usually get about 350 to 400 people that come to the area, that come to Hartville, Ohio. and work for basically 3 major growers at this point. And when they leave us, some are going to upstate New York to pick apples. Few are going to Georgia. Some are going home to Mexico. And some will take a month or 2 off and then head to Florida when it's starting to, get ready for some of the crops there. So we have a large amount of people.
What kinds of wages do these people earn?
They have to make at least minimum wage, but they make on piecework and on different things, they can make more. And they work pretty hard, realize that some of the migrants that come to us are very highly educated, have master's degrees in education from Mexico. We had a lawyer who was working in the fields, and that tells you that the economy must be pretty weak if they can make more money working in Hartville, Ohio as a migrant worker.
That is absolutely stunning information.
Right. Education in Mexico is free. It used to be just till 6th grade, and now it's only free till 9. Till 9th grade. So we have a wide range where people, depending on their age, have very little schooling all the way to masterate
or
level.
a Juris Doctorate. My goodness. Okay. So let's talk about education. These children are here only until October. That's when the school year is just really getting off the ground, and then they're about to move on. What happens to them?
Well, it's interesting enough, beginning of the school season, we'll have school supplies for the children and give them all the supplies that they need to start school. Well, at the end of October, when they travel to whatever state or country that they're going to, they will re-enroll into that school in that area, attend school until April, May, depending on when the families return to Hartville, and then they'll re-enroll into the school system here until the end of the school year. Thankfully, we've been blessed to have an educational program to help those students to continue throughout the summer to keep up on their studies, so that way the constant moving around doesn't, hinder their learning.
So they're attending as many as 4 schools within a year, or is it back and forth?
I think it depends. They may, when they're here in the area, they attend Marlington schools. So they'll start Marlington schools here and they'll finish here, depending on where they travel to. If it's somewhere that they go back to constantly, then they'll go back to that same school. Okay. So it probably depends on their arrangements when they return to their city or state.
How do you coordinate with Marlington? How does that work?
Marlington has actually a federal grant that all the children go to Marlington, so they enroll them. They work pretty closely with us to find out which kids are here, which aren't, and they keep wonderful records of those. They know what their home schools are, what states they come from. In the summer, we have a summer school program that's about 6 weeks, and it's housed at Marlboro Elementary School. And the younger children tend to go to that. They pick them up about 7:30, feed them breakfast, keep them till noon, feed them lunch. They used to bring them back to us, but our children's program, we grew out of our building because we have about 80 in it now. So they house them at Marlington doing an after-school program, a summer activity. It's educational based. It's tied to the curriculum. They do homework, but they learn all kinds of arts, crafts. They go on field trips.
Nice.
And it's wonderful. They bring them back to us about 6 o'clock. Right before they bring them back to us, they feed them one more time. So they get 3 meals a day. The high school students don't really tend to want to go with the younger kids to school, so Marlington picks them up in the evening and they bus them to school, and they work on credit recovery. So whatever the state is that they're going to or coming from, is it better for them to graduate from high school in Texas or maybe in Florida? Okay. Do they have more credits? Should they graduate in Ohio? And Cindy Farrow is the principal at Marlboro. She heads up the summer program, and she does a wonderful job figuring out what what's the best for the children and how we can get them. And that's our goal, is education. Let's get them an education.
For the high school students, for any of the students, are any of these children working in the fields, or are they just working on their education while the parents and grandparents are working in the fields?
So they can't work until they're 15 and a half,
Okay.
and so 16. So they want to work. They want to make money, just like all children do. And so that way, because school is at night, they can work during the fields, right? The high school students, the older ones, can work and do some things, help in the greenhouse, do different jobs, still make some money, and catch up on their school in the summer.
And as you said, your goal is to make sure that each of these children graduates, gets a high school diploma. Do you see them coming back then years later as the parents? Does the cycle continue, or can we break the cycle so that these migrant workers are able to find maybe more fulfilling employment? I'm watching your face as you've said. Maybe they don't want to. This is by choice for many people.
We have migrant Head Start. Children go down the field. It's also a federal program where babies start there. They can go a couple weeks old to Head Start, and it goes till they're 5 or 6 till they go to school. So they get an education. We start early, try to get them ready for school. We do our school program. We're doing after-school activities. We're doing different things and trying to get them a high school education. And we also have adult ed. We have, for those adults, we have GED, English as a second language, and our goal is to get them an education, try to help them. We have one student right now, or one migrant right now, who's in an LPN program. We have a couple med techs. We've had some wonderful people that have finished their GED, and we think it's working.
Then I imagine some come back and some stay in the life and some leave and go do other things. Is that correct?
Yes, and you have to remember that they typically come in family units. So a lot of times, a whole family will move up from the city or from the state or the country that they're coming from. And so it can be grandparents and parents and siblings and often cousins and aunts and uncles. So while the draw to leave that lifestyle and maybe obtain a different career, that draw to be with family is still there as well. So, if they choose to separate from that lifestyle, a lot of times they will be leaving their family unit that they've been with for many years. So, it's definitely a challenge, but we would love to give them that opportunity to do whatever their hearts desire, what makes them happy in life.
You must get so connected to them, to the families, and get to know them as they come through. And the children, I would imagine, it would be hard not to become attached. How rough is that with the work that you both do? To have to say goodbye so often because they're here and then they're not.
To me, the past few years that I've been involved with the Hartville Migrant Ministry, I was involved greatly with the children, and to see them come back the next year a little bit taller and a little bit smarter, and just to feel their hugs and, hi, Miss Nicole, and then to know that I have to say goodbye at the end of the month is pretty tough, and you do develop a relationship with the migrant workers. They depend on us for a lot more than a free clinic. They depend on us for many things.
We're speaking with Nicole Bowman and Laura Weiss, both from the Hartville Migrant Ministry. And stay with us. We've got more with them after these words. You're listening to Our Community.